Hello there. So just a quick tutorial, I suppose, just to show you how I use macros within Sublime Text to greatly speed up creating multiple sample groups for my decent sampler DS preset files. Now, why might you want to do this? Well, one reason might be that you have different presets or patches for a synthesizer, or you might have different instruments for like a sort of orchestral virtual instrument. It might be violin, viola, cello, so on and so forth. You might have seen this in my DS80 synthesizer that I did with Moggy Grumbles, so I did the coding for that. And there are a load of different patches, and it gets quite tedious to go through and change the folder names and the file names by hand. You can use some shortcuts, so I'm going Control Shift Alt on some Windows. I apologize, you'll have to check what the equivalents are for Mac, but if I go Control Shift Alt, I can use the mouse to select multiple lines, or I think Control Alt, and I can use the arrow keys. But even so, it can be quite time consuming and, as I say, tedious. So this is a really good way of speeding everything up. Now, there are a few pitfalls that you can avoid by just kind of making sure everything's the same. So for example, if you have, I think I looked this up earlier and it's C#3 maybe, something like that. And then I guess this is probably D3 in that case. So you can see the line lengths are different. Whoops. The line lengths are different. So you might run into some issues there. So it's a good idea to just try and keep everything more or less the same. Sometimes you seem to be able to get away with it. It depends what you're trying to do. So this will take a bit of trial and error sometimes, but I'll show you this really kind of basic-ish method. So to start with, let's make sure that the file name in this this initial group that we're going to use as a template is the same as what we've got here in this tags thing here. You can also use a name element, I think, for groups, but it's really useful to have tags because you can use them for things like muting, or turning on and off, toggling on and off. You can disable tags. You can use it for the various sort of amp functions, I think, and then also with a little bit of trickery, I think you can get it to, or you can also use tags for pan and maybe even tuning. Anyway, you can do some cool things with tags, so it's good to have a tag associated with your particular group of samples. Also, you wouldn't probably normally have a subfolder here within your samples folder, but if you do have lots of groups of samples, it's a good idea to group them. It just helps keep everything ordered and organized. So I've got that here just so that you can see that you can do slightly more complicated structures like this. So what we're going to do is we've copied that into here, and we're going to position the cursor here at the end of the tag text as if we've just edited that, because we'll be doing that when we copy this group. That will make sense soon. So we go Tools, Record Macro. Now again, you'll have to look up what the Mac equivalents are, but on Windows I'm going Control Shift and then the left arrow key, so that selects that tag text. I'm going to go Control C to copy it, and then normally I could use the mouse to make selections, but I want to move the cursor and make selections relative to the current position. So I'm going to use the arrow keys to move down here. We're going to go to this instrument folder name. We're going to go Control Alt, and that's again going to let me select multiple lines. I'm then going to go Control Shift right, but I could just as easily hold Shift and select, which I'll show you in a moment. But same difference really. So I'm going to go Control V, so that's going to paste the text that we copied from that tags element. Control V. Nothing's changed obviously because it's already says that, but it'll make sense once we start editing these in the subsequent groups, in the next load of groups. Here let's just do Shift and right key, so that's another option. Sometimes if you do the Control Shift thing, it will overshoot a bit, but if that happens you can just hold Shift and you can go track back a little bit. Anyway, so we want to go to just to where that that underscore is. Basically select the bit that is the name, and then we're going to go Control V again. Again, it doesn't look like anything's happened, but we have pasted that example 01 in there. It's just the same as what was already there. Now we could leave it there, but just for neatness, let's go press the escape key, and that just takes us back to that single line cursor. Now let's go back up to here to where we started, and that's pretty much it. Let's go stop recording macro. So tools, stop recording macro. Then we're going to go save macro. I'm going to save over this example 1, which I did earlier. And that's pretty much our macro done, hopefully. So let's copy this group. Let's do a couple of copies. Now, so that's our original one. We want to leave that as it is. That is presumably all working, doing wonderful things. So this second one we want to make into the next instrument. So let's call it, it doesn't even have to be example, let's call it test 01. All right. So long as this stuff is the same as our sort of template group, so long as all of this is the same, and we still have the same number of lines, then anything we put in here will get pasted into these places. So let's try it out. So we go Tools, Macros, User, and then this example 01 that we created. Let's see, will it work? It did, hurrah, and other expressions of jubilation. You'll have to excuse me, I'm a bit overtired. So it now says test1 there in the folder, so that's the folder, and then /test1, that's the file name of the wave, and it hasn't touched this last portion, which are the MIDI note names. So we can call these anything, doesn't matter, it can be probably even be one letter long. We can try that, Z. Macro user example 1, and there you go, ZZ. So yeah, so long as you've got the same number of lines, it should paste fine. Should put whatever's in the tags box into wherever you pasted it. So you can do a whole load of these kind of things. Basically anything that can be repeated in order, you know, as a sequence of steps. Sorry, you should be able to record as a macro. But as I say, there are a few pitfalls where if there's something slightly wrong something slightly different in the formatting, so like the line length, or well, not even the line length. If that was like that, if there was a character missing, or even if that was instead of a 0, it was, I mean, this probably wouldn't work as a decent sampler file, but just as an example, you might have an issue if there's some kind of discrepancy. So you might have to do a bit of trial and error, open it up in a test document. But you can do all kinds of clever things. You can shift things, lines up, say. In fact, oops. So you could create a macro that does something like this. Maybe, oops, let's go select those, copy those, and then paste it up, and it's moved everything up. So you can do things like that. Yeah, basically anything that is repeatable, you should be able to make a macro for it. You can do lots of clever things. Anything that you can do, the macro should be able to do. Sorry, rambling. Like I say, overtired. So I hope that was useful and made sense. I'm sorry if I talked a bit quickly. I've recorded this a few times and had a few technical issues with my capture and yeah. Anyway, thanks for watching. Hope it was useful. Yeah, ta-ta.